Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. Today I have a near impossible task, taking every single Acqua di Gio fragrance that you can find nowadays and rank them from worst to best. Acqua di Gio has always been an extremely important fragrance and fragrance line to me because the original Acqua di Gio was for a number of years my signature scent. So I have a lot of good memories with that fragrance, and if it didn't exist, this channel might not exist. Basically, Acqua di Gio and Drakkar Noir, which hang out over my shoulder here in pretty much every video, those were the scents that really kick-started this whole fragrance collecting thing. It's not a problem. It's only a problem if I admit that it is. I have all the fragrances that I talked to you about here today linked in the description in the order that I ranked them, and there are a couple caveats. So this list includes all the Acqua di Gio fragrances that you can realistically find in the US without much trouble. So that means things like Acqua di Gio Essenza, Acqua di Gio Profumo, Acqua di Gio Profumo Special Blend, Acqua di Gio Blue Edition, fragrances like that are not included. Because those fragrances nowadays, you're basically gonna have to be buying off of like eBay for an astronomical price. But there are still 10 different Acqua di Gio fragrances that you can easily find, whether we're talking about at Macy's, retailers, or discounters like Fragrance by JOMASHOP, etc. So that means I will be including, for example, the original version of Acqua di Gio Profondo and the new version. The original version of Acqua di Gio Parfum and the new version. So 10 different fragrances. Here we go. Coming in at my number 10 spot, so the worst Acqua di Gio in my opinion right now, Profondo Parfum, which is a bummer, but this one just does not work for me compared to every single other Acqua di Gio that you can find. Now, I'm not saying that it's the worst fragrance of all time or anything like that, but for my own taste, it is the worst Acqua di Gio. And even if we were including some of those fragrances that are discontinued, like Essenza, or even Absolute or Absolute Instinct, I think I would still have this one as last.
In my opinion, that sucked.
So it is green, it's sweet, it's a little bit earthy. It does have a magnetic cap, but even that can't move it out of last place. So this one is a little bit less fresh than most of the other Acqua di Gio fragrances, and the green aspect that it has, a lot of the Acqua di Gios, to be fair, do have a green aspect in them nowadays, but the green aspect in Profondo Parfum is a little bit off-putting. So for me, it doesn't work as well as being a very versatile compliment-pulling type scent compared to the other Acqua di Gio fragrances. It does come across a little bit more mature compared to some of those other Acqua di Gios, which you would expect because it is a parfum. But if there was one Acqua di Gio, one that I had to say, look, I don't even care if you take it from my collection, not a big deal, it would be this one. So last place, Acqua di Gio Profondo Parfum. And one other thing that works against this fragrance a little bit is that it is a parfum, and by that I mean it's more expensive. So for this one, a 100 ml size bottle full retail is $175 compared to Profondo Eau de Parfum, which is $145, making this one of the more expensive Acqua di Gios at retail price, assuming you're shopping at Macy's or something, which again, like I said, works against it a little bit. Now you may say, yes, but I can shop at discounters. Yes, you can, absolutely. And this is still about $30 more than the Eau de Parfum version of Profondo, even at discounters. So that price difference is pretty much the same. It's lower, but the difference the same. All right, number 9. So the next best Acqua di Gio. You're keeping it very positive. This is not the second worst Acqua di Gio. This is the next best Acqua di Gio. For me, that is the original Eau de Parfum. As we work through and contrast and compare a little bit here, I'll show you the differences between the original version and new version of some of these fragrances so that you know what to look for. Because like I said, you can still find all of these. So that means depending on where you're looking, you'll see Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum, Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum, and be like, what? So I'll show you how to tell the difference, and some of them it's very easy. So the Eau de Parfum, this has been one that, I never hated this. I never disliked the fragrance, but it didn't quite capture my attention the same way as a lot of the other ones did. It's mineral centric, so it's got a lot of minerality to it. It's another one that has kind of a vegetal green aspect to the fragrance as well. So it's got this herbaceous green kind of woody feeling as the fragrance dries down, and just overall not quite as pleasant smelling to me as it dries down as compared to a lot of the other ones that we're going to talk about. So again, not an awful fragrance, not a terrible release, but I do definitely like the other ones coming after it a good deal more. Still, not bad. And for Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum at full retail, this version right here, 160 bucks, at least for a 4.2 ounce size bottle, but you can get that steeply discounted. You can get that at discounters for like mid 70s for the same size. All right, next fragrance, I'm gonna have to put Acqua di Gio Elixir in that spot. So this is obviously the newest Acqua di Gio fragrance, and I do like a lot of what this fragrance does, but I also think that, you know, side by side up against all the other ones, I would rather own and wear most of them. Maybe some very particular spots, I would go for Acqua di Gio Elixir over the other ones, but by and large, yeah. This is just where I gotta put it. Now the opening here is really nice. I actually like the opening a good amount. It smells like an elevated, classy take on Acqua di Gio, a little bit darker, but it still has that nice freshness, that citrus in there. As it dries down, you get a lot of violet that comes out. Violet and leather. And it's mixed together with the Acqua di Gio DNA, but the way that the violet and the leather hit are a little bit reminiscent of how the violet and the leather hits in something like Fahrenheit Cologne, which that one has been discontinued. I bought it when it was brand new, and obviously a lot of people thought it was okay because it didn't last that long. But yeah, it smells a little bit like you took a smidge from that Fahrenheit line, again, mainly just the violet mixed with leather underneath, and then mixed it together with a somewhat darker, elevated Acqua di Gio. The dry down smells pleasant here. There's decent versatility. The longevity is really good, like you would expect from an Elixir fragrance. You know, lasts a long time for a fresher type of scent profile. It does come in a smaller bottle size. As of when I'm filming this video, it's still not available at full retail in the US. I paid $109 for mine, which actually I got it from Sabina, S-A-B-I-N-A. They get a lot of new releases. It comes from Europe, but it gets to the US pretty quick. And actually I messed up when I did the first impressions video. I had ordered fragrances, new fragrances from Beauty the Shop, Sabina, and also Makeup Store, like all at the same time. And I got mixed up in that video and said that I bought this one from Makeup Store. I actually bought this one from Sabina. So yeah, sorry about that. Total like, I bought Coach Eau de Parfum from one of them. I bought, I don't know, I bought like 4 or 5 things all at the same time. Like all the new releases dropped, but across all those different websites. And this is also available at Sweet Care as of this video for like $124, $125, something like that, which I think that comes from Portugal. I've ordered from them before too. So yeah, price-wise, you can find it kind of all over right now. I've seen it for $164. Again, it's not available at Macy's right now, but I've seen it on these other stores that are selling from Europe. So yeah, I've seen it $164, $109, $124, just all over. At the price I paid, $109, I'm fine with that. That's not crazy, especially when you compare it to the Elixir prices of like Sauvage Elixir, which is way more expensive than that, like $70 more. Y Elixir, same thing, like $70 more. But when this drops in the US, if this is like 180, yeah, it's way overpriced for what it is. If it drops at full retail for like 150, I'm okay with that, all things considered, you know, based off of traditional Elixir pricing, if we want to call it that, I guess. But just on the whole, Acqua di Gio Elixir, a fragrance I like, I do enjoy it, smells pleasant, very nice, but I just like all the other ones more, and so this is where it goes. And again, I wish I had like the exact pricing of what it's gonna be, because then that would help evaluate it a little bit more fairly probably, but I'm just working off the assumption it's probably gonna be somewhere around, I don't know, 165, 170. Next fragrance is gonna be one that a lot of you go, I don't know, man, but for me, this is where I have to put it. It's the original Acqua di Gio Parfum. So this is obviously gonna be a bit similar to Acqua di Gio Profumo, which was unfortunately discontinued. It has a bit of an almost peppery spiciness to it. Like at times when I've worn this fragrance in the past, it's had this like punch that reminds me of pepper. Still, it's a really well done, modern take on the Acqua di Gio DNA. It doesn't have that floral aspect that the original had. Instead, this one is a bit darker, but it still has a great freshness to it as well. Good versatility, a big compliment puller as most Acqua di Gios are, and it has solid performance as well. But I do feel like this iteration of Acqua di Gio Parfum is not quite as smooth as the newer iteration, which we'll get to later, which is why this one slots in right there. After that, kind of pains me to do this, but the original Eau de Toilette. Yeah, the one that started it all right there. So this is classic Acqua di Gio. It's more floral forward than pretty much everything that's come after it, other than maybe Acqua di Gio Elixir with the violet that's in there, but it's a very different type of floral feel between the two, obviously. Performance is generally gonna be lower with the original Acqua di Gio Eau de Toilette here compared to everything else that we're talking about here, so you know, that does bump it down just a little bit. If we're talking about the most important release out of everything, it's this one. But I think compared to some of the other newer ones that are out nowadays, I would rather wear most of those than this one, even though this one has a strong nostalgic part in my heart. I gotta put it here kind of right in the middle. All right, now we're in the top 5. And the top 5 is very close. There's not a huge difference between each one of these. Like I would say for me that there's Profondo Parfum, then a bit of a gap, and then the original Eau de Parfum, and then another gap, and then the Elixir and the original Parfum are a little bit closer together, and then this is just nostalgia. So, but it's solid, it's still good. Number 5, I'm gonna go with the new iteration of Acqua di Gio Eau de Parfum. Now, obviously, pretty easy to see the difference between these two, right? So the new version of the Eau de Parfum obviously has a gradient finish, kind of like a smoky bottom, gets more clear up toward the top. Then the caps are different as well. The original one had this woodsy cap, and then the new one, just a smooth plastic cap. They also reworked where Giorgio Armani is located here. So on the original, you see it right across the middle, and then on the new version, it's down here at the bottom. So pretty easy to tell the difference between these two. They also changed the bottle sizes on these as well. So it used to be the larger size was 4.2 ounces. Now it's 3.3. So they did make that change as well. Now to the actual fragrance. This is something that I find reoccurred with each one of the new iterations of their lineup. The new version of the Eau de Parfum comes across as smoother when compared directly to the older version. Just overall easier to wear, more appealing in general. It doesn't have quite as much of this like aromatic green bite around the edge of the scent that the original does, which can sometimes be off-putting. Like I said, with the newer version, that's kind of been smoothed out. It still has solid performance, just like the original Eau de Parfum, but where that aggressive green herbaceousness has been reined in a little bit, this just comes across as the better wearing, more versatile version of Eau de Parfum. After that, the new version of the Eau de Toilette. This one is very fresh, like you would expect, because it is the Eau de Toilette version of Acqua di Gio, so that's what you would expect to be the freshest of the bunch, and it is. Now, there is one pretty big difference between this and this. So the original Acqua di Gio, as I mentioned before, a little bit floral forward. Still very fresh, clean, easy to wear, big compliment puller. We know, but it is and was floral forward. The new version, they've taken a lot of that and kind of jettisoned it. So now it has more of that modern Acqua di Gio DNA, that sort of mineral forward type of aquatic feel. You're gonna get way more of that here than in here. And to me, it also comes across as sweeter as well, which does make it a better wearing, modern, contemporary fragrance. You know, it's more in line with what people are looking for nowadays. And I do find myself gravitating a little bit more towards this than the OG, though of course the one that is most important to me is still this one right here. And with these bottles, maybe from afar, they look pretty similar, but with the new version of Eau de Toilette, it has a gradient finish. So it's kind of clear down here at the bottom and then goes up frosted at the top, whereas the original version is just frosted all the way. And then also, once again, they moved Giorgio Armani down here to the bottom of the bottle instead of in the middle. And you also have Eau de Toilette on the front of the new one, so showing you that designation of the concentration. All right, we're in the top 3. Number 3 for me is the original Profondo. When Profondo came out, I fell in love with that. I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. A great reimagining of the Acqua di Gio DNA. And actually, a lot of the changes that have happened to some of these Acqua di Gio fragrances were set in motion, I feel like, partially by this. Because this is more green than what the original Acqua di Gio was. It also has that minerality as well. So it has that sort of aromatic backbone to the fragrance, not as concentrated on florals. Still has a nice citrus opening, some mandarin orange in there. So it's almost like they made an Acqua di Gio here with a little bit of a blue fragrance versatility. I really enjoyed it a whole heck of a lot. And after this one came out, you see some of the other ones here, like the Eau de Toilette remake, kind of incorporating some of those ideas into the new version. All right, top 2. I have to tell you guys, when it came down to the top 2, it was just, It was like this neck and neck. And ultimately what I did is I went to my wife. You know how that is. Wife is always right.
Happy wife, happy life?
And I said, okay, I really can't decide between these two. Which one do you like more if you were gonna pick just one? And I didn't tell her what was what, just had her smell the fragrances, and she picked the winner. So in spot number 2, and for me, these are essentially the same. For me, it's 1A and 1B. But for the sake of the video, number 2 is the new Profondo, which I really like. And again, I like both of these. And in terms of the bottle difference, this is another one not too hard to tell. The original Profondo, kind of a frosted blue look all the way. The new one gets a gradient. So you can see it gets clear at the bottom, gradient up toward the top. And again, the same thing that I've talked about before, Giorgio Armani moves down. You have the concentration right there on the front as well. So the new Profondo, this one is obviously quite similar to the original Profondo, but again, it's gonna be a little bit smoother, a little bit sweeter, which is something that you find across all of these different reimaginings, remakes, rebottlings, reformulations that make up the old versus new that's in this whole list. It is a little bit less aromatic to me and gets a little bit woodsier as the fragrance dries down. Still, it's gonna be quite similar, but the difference is I do enjoy a little bit more in that new version. And it's such a difference for me between the Parfum and the Eau de Parfum. Like, you can tell that they're related. Like if you spray these fragrances on, you know, one here and one here, but it's just the tweaks that were made to the Parfum. You know, usually those are gonna make it a little bit heavier, a little bit bolder, etc., etc. Just does not really work for me. And that leaves the new Acqua di Gio Parfum as the best one currently available to me. And it does have a magnetic cap. Technically, so does Elixir and so does Profondo Parfum, but we're not talking about those. Pretty much everything I've said about the new version of the Eau de Parfum and Profondo, Eau de Parfum carries over to this new version of the Parfum. Very close to Profumo, which again, unfortunately discontinued. If you want something that smells like that, this is pretty much your best bet outside of just going and scooping up an old bottle of Profumo. It has a great incense touch as it dries down, which makes it more suitable for evening use or a cool weather use as well, but it's still fresh enough that you can wear it in spring or summer or during the day. The spiciness feels much better balanced here in the new version versus the old. The performance is really good, so you don't have to worry about that. Obviously, super versatile, big people pleaser, compliment puller. Yes, it's a Parfum, so it's gonna be a little more expensive than some of the other ones here, but I feel like with this one, you get what you pay for. And so I gotta go Acqua di Gio Parfum as the number 1. So this was a bear. I was actually wearing these fragrances back and forth for a while now. Just had to wait for the Elixir to come in so I could give that some use and compare it side by side. And yeah, while it's not an awful release, it's definitely, for me anyway, not like the pinnacle of the Acqua di Gio line, as you can see. If you're a big fan of the Acqua di Gio line, you should absolutely still check it out. And if you do plan on scooping it up, I would try to find it, obviously, for like that low 100 price range. You know, if it starts creeping up a whole heck of a lot higher, I think you're better off waiting. That way you can test it in a store and make sure that you love it, you know. Better safe than sorry. You don't want to spend a whole heck of a lot of money and then not like it. That would, trust me, I've done that enough times. So there we go, guys. That is my lineup for the Acqua di Gio lineup. Let me know your favorites of the bunch. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.